people, what is cracking like an inspirational way back with another video. So today we're going to continue the legendary martial arts franchise series. I finally got round to watching the Never Back Down series. So that is the series I'm going to cover today. All three of them. Now, so thank you. Also, if you could drop a sub, be very much appreciated. I just want to say thank you because I've seen a few comments on X-Academy about these legendary martial art franchise videos, and they seem to be quite light. So I thank you that you like them, because this was kind of out of nowhere, off the top of my head idea that I wanted to do to kind of fill the gap because I couldn't do much whilst it was in lockdown. And it seems you guys are enjoying the series, especially the way one I did recently. So thank you, very much appreciate it. So let's carry on the trend and break down the Never Back Down series. Little inside knowledge and tip before we start: there is actually going to be a Never Back Down 4 with Michael Bisping, and the reason I know that is because my jiu-jitsu teacher is in it as well. So a little inside knowledge there. I don't know if I should have said, but you know, I don't think you'll ever watch these videos. But yeah, little inside knowledge there is going to be a Never Back Down 4 with Michael Bisping in it, and my jiu-jitsu teacher, who is like a Naga champion and all sorts of champions, is going to be in it as well. So that's quite a little fact for you guys. So let's start off the fighting. Put it plain and simple, these are MMA films. They're never called Never Back Down because most of them have got some sort of subline plot about some sort of big cocky guy giving it the I am the big guy, you know, you can't fuck me, you can't beat me, I'm the best in the world kind of, and then obviously they get beaten at the end of the film. So that's the mainly reason why I called Never Back Down. But they are basically essentially MMA films underground or backyard. So it's MMA without like the glitz and glamour of UFC. Because a lot of the fighting you see is MMA, like moves. There's a lot of like roundhouse kicks to the face and spinning back kicks and uppercuts and hooks and those sort of kicks and punches. Very typical, you know, clinching, judo, jiu-jitsu, all that kind of stuff you'd see in MMA, it's just without the glitz and glamour. So it's kind of like MMA underground, because you do get MMA underground fighting clubs or backyard MMA fighting clubs, kind of like that. So if you're into MMA, then yeah, the fighting's good. I thought it was really good films. The fighting made really good sense with the films. There's quite a bit of it, but there's not too much of it. There's a lot of it to do with training as well. There's a lot of like MMA training in the training, which I'll go over in a bit, because that's a bit of why I think they make good storylines. So yeah, it's essentially MMA fighting. It makes really good fighting, and obviously all the last fights are really good and, you know, really freaking out there and really amazing fights with, you know, all sorts of different moves. Like I said, there's power bombs in there as well. Typical stuff, you know, head guillotine, choking, standing guillotine, all sorts of classic MMA moves you would see. So on to the storylines, which I need to get my notes for this because yeah, so let's start with number one story. Basically, number one starts, which is this one. Don't know why it's the beatdown edition, but it's this one. The main character basically gets baited into a fight because he gets moved to a different school, because in his old school he started a fight with a football jockey, and he knocks him out with a right hook. And everyone's like impressed, and it obviously makes internet rounds because good old internet for you. And then basically the top MMA guy baits him into a fight by using a girl that kind of he likes, but he doesn't realise it's the person's girlfriend, so he gets baited into a fight with him because everyone thinks he's hard, and so they're like, oh, let's get him to fight this guy, you know. And then it basically becomes to humiliation. He gets humiliated because obviously he has no MMA training, so he gets his ass absolutely rinsed. And then they basically become rivals throughout the film because he gets taunted all the time by the bad guy, and the bad guy's always taunting him and using his girlfriend to kind of like, you know, tease him and be like, look at me, I beat your ass and I got the girl, what are you going to do about it, kind of thing. And obviously he gets into training, MMA training, and then basically the big end fight is not in the cage, because the storyline, there's also a subplot about anger. Yeah, a subplot about anger, which I thought quite my fault. I'll get them. I don't know what's matter with me. I can't freaking speak. Yeah, there's also a subplot that to not walk away from things, because you learn throughout the film that the good guy dad died, and he was in the car and his dad died, and he blames himself for not stopping his dad driving because his dad was drunk when he was driving, and that's what killed him, caused the crash and killed him. He kind of blames himself for that, and instead of running away, he kind of uses that anger to get. That's why he gets in so many fights, because he used that anger to kind of unleash himself when he's in fights, and that's why he's so temperamental. And you also learn that the person that teaches him, the coach, is also kind of doing the same thing, running away from his situation, running away. Because he had a brother that got shot, that he couldn't stop the shooting, and then his dad basically turned around himself when he lost his brother, the coach's brother, that he no sons. So he obviously, you know, blamed him for not stopping the shooting. So he's kind of been running away, living in the gym and not facing up to it, and never seen his dad since then. So it's kind of like a nice little subplot of how they both got stuff that they have to deal with, but instead of facing it head on, and it's never back down, they kind of have faded away from it, kind of been, you know, not dealt with it, just let it build up and down. So that's a nice little subplot. And obviously in the end he does have to fight with the guy. It's meant to be in like this beatdown tournament, which is like this underground MMA fighting club. But instead of doing it in the ring, because that's what the bad guy obviously wants, because the bad guy loves the attention, he loves the crowd, he loves everyone like looking at him and all the praise he gets with it. He gets himself disqualified on purpose, the good guy, because the bad guy gets disqualified because he does an illegal move. He pokes the guy in the eye, which you're not meant to do. You're not allowed to do in MMA. Obviously street fight, yeah, but not MMA. Because the beatdown tournament is MMA rules. And so because obviously the bad guy got disqualified, the good guy kind of just walks away and is like, well, I don't need to do this fight anymore. The whole reason I come to this tournament is to fight you, the bad guy, and beat you and prove I am better than you and you're not this big top guy. So obviously the bad guy don't like that, confronts him outside and starts a fight outside. And basically all the crowd from the inside comes to the outside, because everyone in the crowd has been waiting to see the two main characters fight. Because he is the good guy and he is the bad guy. Everyone's been waiting for them two to fight. So they kind of go outside, and obviously you get your big fight and the good guy wins. And then the bad guy kind of at the end then just gives him respect. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you respect, okay. So that's kind of the storyline number one. Number two is pretty similar. It's basically Cassie White, which is Michael J. White's character, recruits 4 guys to train, all for different reasons. One's a boxer that gets defeated and becomes but is very cocky and has a bad eye, so can't do boxing again. Another one's an emo that basically wants to just become confident and not be bullied all the time. One's his best friend that is like training to be a UFC fighter, but you know, needs the money to help his family out. So that's why he's doing these beatdown tournaments. Because in the beatdown tournaments, if you win, you get the money. And the fourth one, the main character who does beat the bad guy, is a wrestler. Why did he? I can't remember why he done it. His mum and dad split, and his dad basically turned gay and got with a guy, and he don't know how to deal with it. So to take his aggression out, but not in a bad way, he's turned to MMA. And it's basically about how Michael J. White kind of just teaches all them about MMA. And then the emo kid, I forgot his name. What's his name? But what's his name? Damn it, I forgot. Obviously, all films do have UFC fighters in them at some point. I believe this one of his best mates, is a UFC fighter. This one doesn't, I don't think. Number 3 does. That one has Letitia Machado in it as well, and Todd Duffery. Yeah, I can't remember the emo kid's name, but basically the emo kid, once he's got confidence, goes and takes out the bullies, but he does it in like a bad way. He beats them basically to death. And then because Cassie Walker, which is where I'll come into some of the things why I really like the storylines in all of them, chucks him out of the club and be like, no, you're not training me, you've turned into a killer, that's what I'm not training you for. You know, when you get trained to do MMA, you don't get trained to be a killer, you get trained to, you know, fight in the cage, or protect yourself, not go and beat people up. And that's what he does, takes it too far, and then because he gets kicked out, he frames Cassie Walker's character for murder, for the murder of the bullies that he beat up to death. And then Cassie Walker, and then that basically makes all the rest of the people that are on Cassie Walker's side, all the rest of the fighters, enter the beatdown tournament, and because the emo kids entered it as well, so they can get to the final and beat them up. And then in essence, number 3 is basically about Casey Walker's character, Michael J. White's character, Casey Walker, going to Thailand, training up one of his best friends for a cage fight, a big cage fight. He gets taken out by the rival promoter, the promoter that is putting the fight on, but the promoter is evil on the bad guy's side, so he sends someone over to train with the good guy that breaks his leg on purpose from a heel hook, and that takes him out, so Cassie Walker kind of has to replace his best friend in the fight and take the fight, but he doesn't take the fight in the ring because he also finds out he got set up, that his friend got set up to have his leg broken by the promoter on purpose, because Cassie Walker basically is the bigger star. Because when you also get the news cameramen come in for the training bits of the film and all that sort of montage stuff, all the hype, when you build hype up for fights, you know, how do you do in UFC? He's training in the background, Cassie Walker is training in the background, Michael J. White's character, and they kind of see that he's the bigger potential, so the promoter's kind of like, right, how do we get around this? I want Cassie Walker in the fight, and thinks that his friend's kind of a wash-up has-been. So the way they get him in the fight is by taking his friend out, by sending over to train with him, and take him out with like a heel hook. And I've been in heel hooks, they are dangerous, very dangerous and very painful. But this is on purpose, that he obviously breaks his neck from it. And then Cassie Walker replaces the fight, but instead of doing it in the cage and giving the promoter what he wants, his big money and the big bucks and the big fight, he attacks the bad guy outside the cage and has a fight and basically defeats him outside the cage, and then the promoter loses all his money because obviously then the fight hasn't happened in the cage. And he, you know, hasn't had his big money fight, so all this ticket money goes, everyone, and it all gets found out at the end what he does, so he gets set up to kind of, you know, he don't pay Cassie Walker the money for the fight, and his friend the money for the fight, he'll go to the piece and basically shut the promoter in the end deep end and show all the evidence they got of him like setting up these illegal fights and all the rest of it. So that's kind of the basic films. But there's one thing I really like about these films that really set them up for me. Is that the training bits are really detailed. They are really like on point, because what I mean by that is one of the main three things. There's 3 main things I've seen in these films that made them really realistic. Is MMA as a sport, there is a lot of rules. And I love the fact that each of the films show judo as well, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because a lot of martial arts films don't show that sort of stuff. They only show the striking side of stuff. But these films do show the judo side of things as well as Jiu-Jitsu. And the 3 things I really like is the fact that they stick to traditional rules, because in judo, one of the rules you do have is you start on your knees. When you go to a Jiu-Jitsu class, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, you start on your knees, you kind of bow to your opponent, give your opponent a high five, and it's show respect that you two are just going to spar, that you spar and it's just who can get the better, who can get in the better positions, be the better competitor. And I really like they showed that in the films, because that is a very traditional thing in Jiu-Jitsu. Sometimes you do stand up and try and throw each other to the ground, but that all depends on how much room there is, how many students there is, all that sort of stuff, which normally there isn't much room to do that. Second rule, I love the fact that they included about the temper, because in martial art clubs, I got this in kickboxing when I first started kickboxing. You basically get told that you're doing MMA or any sort of stand-up, you know, I've split the same boxing, I haven't done boxing, but any sort of martial arts, you get told the same thing, that you are doing this training for either a career in cage fighting or to defend yourself, and you're not allowed to use it outside unless it's defense. So I like the fact that quite a lot of the films stick to that, because number 1 does it as well. that when the person goes out and starts a fight or beats people up for no reason, because the number one, the guy is in a temper and he beats up 3 guys that starting him when he's in a car with his mate and beats him up, he gets kicked out of the club. And that's very true. That's a very realistic, true thing about MMA training. Whatever you do, if you start a fight outside and it's not defense, you just start a fight, you will get kicked out of the clubs. So I like the fact that they did that. It's very realistic with that as well. Like the whole, you start outside fighting for no reason, you'll get kicked out of the clubs. That's one of the very simple rules. And then like I said with judo as well. And then the third thing is aggression. There's a very good scene in number 3 and number 1 where the student gets there's a bit of a temper because something's gone wrong, a bit angry. And he basically gets into a sparring session with his partners or the coach, and he gets too aggressive. That's another thing that's very realistic about MMA. When you're in class sparring people, there's a difference between being competitive and being aggressive. Like, you can be competitive. I've in my kickboxing class, there's a few people that are like that, very competitive, and they will swing quite a lot and try and punch you quite a lot. But it's never in like a mean kind of I'm going to try and knock you out way. It's more of a I'm bringing it to you. I'm going to keep coming at you until you defend me or strike back or do something like that. Now that's just being competitive. It's the same in my jiu-jitsu class. I've had a few people in my jiu-jitsu class look at me and my jiu-jitsu partner and go, "God, you two really go for it, don't you?" And it's not like in a bad way. We're just both really competitive, and we're both going to be in a cage fight, hopefully, because he's in the same event I'm going to be in July. That we are very competitive when we spar. But there's a difference between being competitive and being aggressive. And that's what I really like about these films. Like I said, the MMA training parts of it are really, really realistic, and they really show. It's not just about sparring as well. You do tough endurance sessions and fitness sessions and all that sort of stuff. And like I said, the realism of those films. So that's kind of fighting. I forgot the other points I was going to say. 2 sets. So I didn't want to make this 20-minute video, but you know. I've lost it. Is this my anime book? YouTube book. Yes, it is here. Also, the link between all the films, I'll just say that because that is. The first one, the second one basically is Mike is who's the number 1, makes a return and is in charge of the Beatdown Club, which is what is the main kind of tournament in number 1. And number 3, there's a link, same kind of thing. The Beatdown tournament's kind of mentioned, and that's how it's related. And Cassie Walker's obviously in number 2, and then goes to number 3. So that's how they all connect. Number 3's got Cassie Walker, which is number 2, and number 2 is connected to number 1 because Mike's friends with Cassie Walker, and Mike was number 1, and he takes over the Beatdown tournament in number 2. And number 3 and number 2 have fights on the final fight from each film in their films as well, on like a TV screen. So quickly quickly 2 other points. The other points, spin-offs. There is no spin-offs, like I said. There is no spin-off films as far as my anime film's good, yes, because like I said, I pretty much covered it. The realism of the training and the MMA and all the moves and all the principles and honorary code and all that sort of stuff is very true of what they've shown in the films, and I love how realistic they made it. Are the villains any good? Can't really say about the villains because they're just typical cocky, big MMA bad guys that think they know all, kind of like a Conor McGregor, and then get beaten by the good guy. So do they make good villains for MMA fight? I guess you'd say yeah. But yeah, so that's been my breakdown of the Never Back Down series. I don't know what one I'm going to do next. But other than that, I've been Inspirational. I'll be back some point this week with another video. I've been next episode of Locked In Bro for Bro, most probably, or maybe something else, I'm not sure yet. But anyway, I've been Inspirational. Catch you later. Cheers. Bye.